This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
They're a tough team to play against. We just saw them, last month in Tampa, and it's hard to get time and space. We thought we had the puck for quite a bit of the night. It's unfortunate. Our PK has been pretty darn good this year, and they solved us a little bit of our own doing, but I just thought if we kept going, we had a chance. When the clock's ticking down, though, you never know. But a couple big efforts by the guys to get a couple, and I thought, we were knocking at the door. It was just, could we get through? And fortunately for us tonight, we did.
What is going on? The Lightning, 6 in a row. Doesn't matter who they're facing. They're finding ways to win, pick up points, doing it with their starter in net, doing it with their backup in net. Yep. I actually think that was one of the bigger storylines last night, which we will get into here on Power Lunch on Lightning Radio. Happy New Year, everybody. It is 2026.
Happy New Year. Yes.
Very excited about that. New year, new beginnings. Everybody's going on diets. Everybody's trying to rein in what they didn't do last year for this year, and I get that. But for the Lightning, I think while we all want good health for them, Dave Mishkin, as I bring you in here on our show, I don't know if it was more of an epiphany last night during, was it the pregame? I can't remember. They all just kind of go into one. It might have been in the postgame show. And I said it to the guys, and I said, really, when you take a step back, this Lightning team may be as impressive as anyone we've seen up to this point in the regular season and needs more consideration as being one of the best teams in the league, even though maybe the standings don't always suggest it week in and week out, because if you lose 2 games, my goodness, it seems like you drop a little bit because things are so tight.
Right.
My point was, partner, the reason I'm feeling this way is that I think we all can be very critical of things that they don't do. And I think a lot of people in life focus on the negatives. You don't do this. You don't do that. Fair point. I get it. But I also think you do have to be rational and take a step back and say, despite the power play not being what it should be being for them, despite the face-off problems they've had for the whole year, and despite the injuries that they have dealt with, what other team can have this type of success basically midway through the season in a parity-driven league where this isn't supposed to happen? You lose your top 4 defensemen, you have inconsistent scoring with your top players, and then all of a sudden, you talk about the parity. You shouldn't be in this position where your goal differential is one of the best in the league, and you're calling guys up from Syracuse who aren't missing a beat, and your goaltending has been really good. And what I'm saying is, folks, you got a good hockey team here in Tampa, and it's okay to talk about it. We can talk about deficiencies. I get that. It's all part of it. We can talk about Bjorkstrand, and we can talk about the injury bug. But maybe we should be talking about the Lightning are overcoming all of these, and at some point we need to acknowledge it and say, this is actually really impressive. And I'm not sure, Dave, many teams would be in this position. I just think we need to take a step back and acknowledge this has been a really fun year to cover and watch this team progress game in and game out.
I think most Lightning fans, and I got my California cold 3 years in a row, but I will labor through. I think most Lightning fans do appreciate the way the Lightning have played this year, and to an extent exceeded expectations, at least in Lightning land, but I think exceeded expectations if you had told Lightning fans you're going to be without McDonough, you're going to be without Hedman, you're going to be without Chernak for a good portion of the year, Point's going to miss 7 games. If these Lightning fans had been made aware of all of these injuries that the Lightning were going to have at the start of the year, I think that there might have been some nervous fans. So they've been able to persevere. I think around the league, most people who cover the league are acknowledging that the Lightning are doing better than maybe a lot of people thought they were. Because let's not forget, the talk was, the Lightning's window is closing. And, I'm not sure if people thought the Lightning would miss the playoffs, but certainly I don't think many people thought the Lightning would be contending for a division title. There's this perception that the Lightning are an old team when in fact they're really not an old team. But I think just because they've been one of the top teams for so long, there is an idea that they are an older team. When in fact, if you're pulling out McDonough and Hedman, their average age drops down quite a bit, right? Those are the two oldest players on the team. So, and both those guys have been out of the lineup for a good portion of the year. So, I mean, the story this year is Colorado. That's the story. I mean, and deservedly so. They are the best team. They are on pace to set the wins record, the points record. So, I mean, they're going to take up a lot of the oxygen, and their top players are going to take up a lot of the oxygen in terms of like league-wide discussion. But I think the Lightning are getting their due. There are some other surprising teams. I mean, Montreal has done very well this year, and they continue to roll along, even though they give up lots of goals. They won 7-5 yesterday in Carolina. There are some other interesting storylines, including some teams that have been bottom dwellers that are elevating. I wouldn't call Montreal a bottom dweller. They made the playoffs last year. But, the team the Lightning are going to see tomorrow, San Jose, has improved. They are above Hockey 500. They have a sensational young star who made Team Canada, talking about Celebrini. Celebrini's numbers this year remind me of what Taylor Hall did for the Devils that year that Taylor Hall won the MVP award.
Yeah.
I think Celebrini has 60 points. The next closest guy is in the high 20s. I mean, he's got more than twice as many points as the next closest guy in the team. That's spectacular stuff. So I think there are a lot of interesting storylines around the NHL. The Lightning are just one of them. But I don't know that people are giving them short shrift. And really, the Lightning been able to do it, not just like bucking the trend with injuries, but also bucking the trend by doing so well on the road, which has been a problem area for them the last 3 years, honestly, in the regular season. They've not had a good road record in the regular season since 21-22. They have flipped that script this year. And that's been a big part of why they are where they are in the standings. But they're certainly not home free. I mean, it's still so tight, right? All these other teams are managing to get points as well.
No doubt about it. Thaw345 says, what is the Iron Mish streak up to now?
In terms of
I
games
guess just
not missed.
Games, well, right. I mean, that's
you put me in San Jose and I get sick. I don't know what. Actually,
just
I got
how it
sick
is.
before San Jose. Yeah, a couple of years ago, I barely had a voice in San Jose, but I try and power through.
You do.
I mean, the Lightning scoring all these goals late last night probably didn't help me. But
you're just gonna have to start saying
yes. I sound like I'm on an all night bender, which I'm not. But
no,
that's what happens. You get the drainage into your throat, and your vocal cords are affected. But I can
They
make
are.
a sound. If I can make a sound, I will call.
You'll be out there.
Basically,
You will be on.
I'll be out there.
Look, sometimes even announcers, we're not at our best, but we fight through.
No,
and that's how you have to do it. By the way, congratulations to all the NHL players who were nominated.
Yes,
and
how about Pontus
selected.
Holmberg getting to Team
So is that a
Sweden?
surprise? Is that a surprise? I feel like maybe under the radar.
It shouldn't.
Is he
have been a
taking the
surprise.
backpack?
Look, that is just an indication that these teams are built not just with like the most prolific scorers. You're not taking the most dynamic top 26 players. I don't know how many they bring. I guess I could look it up and see. Holmberg is going to fill a specific role for them, similar to what he does with the Lightning. But they see his value. I'm not sure he was on any kind of projected list at the start of the year, so that's a credit to the impression he's made this year.
Well, of course, my campaign to have Jonas Johansson on that team.
Yes, that one
did not happen. However,
I think that's a games played issue. Honestly,
I do too.
Yeah.
But he played a hell of a game yesterday, which we can get into. But Jake Gensel, Team USA.
No shock there.
Hedman. Yeah, Hedman and obviously Holmberg there, and we talked about Canada. Nobody from Finland, obviously.
Right. Well, you don't have any Finnish players.
No Finnish players there.
But they're going to have Bjorkstrand with Denmark. They're going to have Gergensons in Latvia. They're going to have Moser in Switzerland. I don't know if those teams have they announced
I haven't
their
seen anything
rosters yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything yet. But that's pretty cool. It's always fun to see those names. It's always fun to see also like the countries who have some NHL players, and then there's a few guys you've never heard of.
Yes.
I always find
Latvia is going to be one of those teams.
They
And
will
Switzerland too, probably.
They will be.
Yeah.
So that's always pretty cool.
Well,
we'll
do you
get to your
want to get
questions.
into the games this weekend,
let's-
feels like it was the weekend. It was the last 2 days because it was New Year's Eve and New Year's Day.
I think we need to, because the Lightning are up to 6 games in a row
Yeah.
winning, and doing it maybe different ways, but maybe the same to a degree, partner. But why don't we start? You want to start with a couple of nights ago? Where do you want to go?
Two very different teams. So the Lightning had played Anaheim and LA at home already, but not back to back. You can really see the difference between these two teams when you're playing them on, in this case, consecutive days, or even
Right.
2 in a row. Right. When you go out to California, you're probably playing LA and Anaheim in some order, with San Jose either at the beginning or the end. Some unlucky teams have San Jose in the middle. Yeah, the Lightning have had that on occasion. That hasn't been the case over the last several years. So Anaheim is a team that can score but has trouble defending. LA is a team that can defend but has trouble scoring. And you really saw the difference in those two teams. The Anaheim game, the Lightning, I thought, had a good first period. I thought they carried play for the majority of it. They had a couple of hiccups where Nestorenko hit the post crossbar, and then they had that sequence where Zellweger had 3 shots in a row that looked like were all on net, but actually all 3 were blocked. Other than that, Anaheim didn't have much going in the first period, and the Lightning were kind of on it. Like, their passing was crisp. They were moving the puck well. They scored a goal that was taken away due to an offside challenge. They scored a goal that wasn't taken away where Moser shot it in from the dot. A nice shot again. We talk about over the pad, under the glove. That's where that shot went in, and was able to beat Dostal in that spot, because goalies go down in the butterfly. There is a space below the arm, above the pad on either side. That's where Moser scored his goal. And, the Lightning might have gotten more than one. They didn't, but I thought that they had a fairly good first period. The second period was like the Keystone Cops. I mean, I don't know what was going on, if it was the ice or what, but both teams were overskating pucks, mishandling pucks. I mean, they couldn't get out of their own way. And ultimately, the Lightning had one of these plays that led to the tying goal, because Destu goes to make a pass and his stick blade goes right over the puck. I don't know if the puck stopped on the ice or what. I mean, you just don't see that happen, and it led to a 2-on-1, and the Ducks scored to tie the game. But before the period ended, the Lightning were able to answer. They had trouble just making plays in the second period. As good as their passing was in the first, it really took a step back in the second. But the goal that Point scored to make it 2-1 was a very nice passing sequence where they worked it around the offensive zone. Kucherov wired it cross ice to Crozier, who was on the left side of the ice, righty shot, so he had a good angle. And he took a one-timer, but it wasn't a big wind-up. He kind of snapped it. And Point had gotten body position in front and was able to redirect it in for 2-1. So you're feeling pretty good if you're the Lightning. You're up 1. I think you've outplayed the Ducks through 40 minutes, even though the second period was sloppy.
Sure.
And the Ducks poured it on in the third. I mean, that was by far their best period. They applied pressure through much of that period. Their forecheck gave the Lightning trouble, and you could see their offensive guys. Actually, it was a game in which, Gauthier had a chance and Carlson had a chance, but I thought actually their 2 most dangerous offensive players, and you could really see it in the third period, were 2 of their other younger guys, Seneca, the 2 guys who scored, Seneca and McTavish. They were really, really dangerous in the third period, and twice the Lightning gave up a goal that got the game tied. Now, they got a power play goal from Kucherov on an otherwise very dry power play. It was their first shot attempt on the power play, but it went in, and that helped them never basically lose the lead. But they got outplayed in the third period. There's no getting around that. Get the game to overtime, and it was a way different overtime than the one the Lightning had played against Montreal, in part because Montreal had all the possession really in the overtime last Sunday. The game in Anaheim, the Lightning had most of the possession, and right after Cirelli got robbed in front twice by Dostal, and then the puck got cleared. Radish makes the long outlet to Hagel. Hagel makes a really nice play along the sideboards where he squeezes through 2 Ducks defenders, and then Jackson Lacombe, the third defender, is kind of out of position. I think he slid to the ice to try and block the pass and was out of the play. So, in fact, the Lightning had 2 other guys open in front, and Radish was the one who went to the front of the net and redirected it in. So I would not say that it was like the cleanest win the Lightning have had this year, but they never trailed, and they did enough offensively to make sure that, you know, the Ducks weren't able to catch them and overtake them, which I thought was important. And you'll take it. I mean, look, it's a road win against a pretty talented team that until the third period, you did a fairly good job holding in check, and you got the second point. So it was a nice way to ring out 2025 and get ready for 2026. That was the first game anyway. The second game was way, way different in terms of how it looked.
Well, and just to piggyback, you know, a couple of big picture things. Coop getting a win in his 1,000th career game. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, that was neat.
Hagel with 3 assists. Radish continues, you know, his offensive production, which is fantastic. Vasi continues to win games and nets. You know, anytime I see Jansen Harkins score a goal, I kind of cringe a little bit just because he hasn't scored a lot. And I'm thinking, all right, this guy.
He had an open
gets
net,
a goal.
basically, though. I mean,
did.
the goal happened because the puck slid under Destu's stick or whatever.
He did. And look, kudos to him. He's an NHL player. Of course, he knows how to do it. He just doesn't do it on a regular basis. But I just thought in general, just I think to your point, anytime you go out west and it's maybe that first game, it can be a little challenging. But, you know, the Lightning, I thought on the goal that made it 2-1, I remember just jotting a few things down. That play was made in part by Moser, not only offensively, but in the defensive zone. Big check that had that puck get loose, and the Lightning were able to go the other way. So we talk about, you know, Moser being able to do some things. His plus-minus speaks for itself. He is playing some high-level hockey, and I thought that play in some ways illustrated his ability on both ends of the ice, too. That's a little bit underrated. But I liked everything about that game because, listen, Anaheim's a tricky team. They really are. They put a lot of pressure on you. They can. They have a lot of talent. And I think for the most part, the Lightning being able to come away with 2 points in that game was nice. And Eric Chernak returned to the lineup too. So you know, good to see him come back and now he gets into some rhythm.
He needs to get
forward.
into a rhythm. I mean, it's natural. He missed 17 games. So kind of getting back into the flow of things, it wasn't going to happen overnight, but for him to play in back-to-back days probably didn't hurt in that regard, like getting into the flow of things. So the LA Kings are an interesting team. There was a lot of chatter after the game yesterday that the Kings should fire Jim Hiller, who got hired a couple of years ago. And once he came in, I mean, the Kings really elevated. I mean, they had a very, very good year last year, and they probably should have beaten Edmonton in the first round. And I think some of this chatter is due to the fact that they've not been a good home team this year, which is polar opposite from where they were last year. Last year, they went 31-6-4 in LA. That's tremendous. This year, I think that last night was their 9th regulation loss already at home. So there's something like 5-9-4 or something like that at home. So the fans are seeing the team lose, but they've been a good road team because they're right there. I mean, I think they're maybe one slot out of the wild card spot. So watching this team now play a couple of games, the game in Tampa, they did rope-a-dope it. Like they just relied on defending because they were playing the second half of a back-to-back. Last night or yesterday, the roles were reversed. The Lightning were the ones playing the second half of a back-to-back, and the Kings were rested. And I thought the Kings did enough to score more than 3 goals, honestly. I mean, they have some guys that can make plays. And, you know, Johansson made some good saves. He stopped Alex Laferriere on a breakaway. Fiala was dangerous. We know Kempe can score. I mean, they have some pretty skilled defensemen as well. Brant Clark's a good offensive defenseman. Doughty can rip the puck as well. So it's a little curious that they've struggled to score as much as they have. And some of it maybe is that they're just so focused on defending that they don't take any risks. And maybe there's more of a balance they can find there. But let me tell you, like when you fall behind to the LA Kings, it is tough sledding. And the Lightning spent most of the season series, the 2 games, trailing. And you could really see how good the Kings are defensively.
Right.
They just don't mess around. Like they're positionally sound and they protect the house, so it's hard to get inside on them.
Sure.
And when they get a puck in their own zone, it's getting out. Often they're flipping it out, but if they have a chance to pass it, like the passing out of the defensive zone is crisp and clean. And it just felt like, when the Lightning were trailing, and they were trailing 2-1 early, and then they were trailing 3-2 in the third, it was just hard for them to sustain any kind of offensive zone pressure, which is a credit. I mean, this is extremely high-level defending the Kings are showing. So, I mean, look, I'm the outside looking in. I think it would be a big mistake to fire the head coach because he's getting them to play the way that you really need to play to have success in the playoffs.
Sure.
That's championship-level defending. But if you can't score, you're gonna have a lot of games that are like 2-1, right? And you might be on the wrong end of them. Last night was a little different. So how did the Lightning end up generating their goals? Well, the first goal they scored in the power play. And for all of the talk about the power play, like the power play is chipping in here a little bit. They only had one chance against Montreal last Sunday. But, it got them a big goal in Anaheim, even though I really didn't like the power play on that particular chance. They scored, and they had a really nice goal to open the game on the power play. They only had one other chance, and it came in the third period when they were down. But 1 for 2 is good, right? The penalty killing was the problem on special teams yesterday. So they got the first goal on a nice passing play, but at that point it was 0-0, and the Kings weren't in the lead. And then the Kings pressed. And Perry had a great game. Perry is the one who got his stick in the way of that Carlisle pass, which shouldn't have been attempted, but Perry was smart enough to read it and get his stick on it, and that slowed up the puck. And Malott, who'd been out of the lineup for 6 games, is back in, and he grabs it and rips it in. A great shot. So it's 1-1, and the Lightning take a penalty. And I mean, the Kings, their power play lasted 30 seconds before they scored. They had numerous chances, even before Kuzmenko shot the rebound in. Right off the draw, Byfield goes in front. There was a backdoor play, Fiala to Perry, that almost went in. And then on the goal, Fiala again went to Perry. It bounced off Johansson, hit Chernak. Johansson then kicks it out, and it got kicked out to Kuzmenko, and he shot it in. So, 6 minutes and change into the game, it's 2-1 LA. And I tell you what, Greg, it looked like the Kings would have been completely content to play the final, 53 and a half minutes and just keep the game 2-1. They're like, we're fine. We're up. We're going to settle into our play with a lead type mode, and we are going to frustrate the bejesus out of the Lightning. And that's really what we saw from much of the rest of the first through much of the second. Lightning got the 1-3-on-1, which was a rare mistake by the Kings, and Kemper made the save on Pontus Holmberg. That was late in the first. The Lightning, the second period shots were 7-2. It ended up in favor of the Lightning. Don't read too much into that. It was really what the Kings were doing in their own zone that was preventing the Lightning from generating much of anything. And
Sure.
So for the Lightning, goals 2, 3, and 4 all kind of had the same DNA to it. What happened on those 3 goals? The Lightning basically forced their way into the offensive end. In a couple of instances, in all 3 instances, the puck was behind the Kings' net. I mean, the goal that Cirelli scored, Kucherov took it behind the net. On the second goal, Point took it behind the net, but the play was a broken play behind the net. Radish tries to make a pass. It hits Mikey Anderson's skate. Kemper's looking to his right because that's where the puck was going to go. Instead, it pinballs to the other side, and Point has an open net. He walks above the goal line and tucks it in. Kemper doesn't even know it's there. It was a lucky bounce, but it was an ugly goal, right? That's what it took. So you start the third period, and the Lightning try and make a pass off the rush. It was Gonsalves. He had a chance to shoot. He tries to make a pass, gets intercepted, comes back the other way. The Kings get a 2-on-1. That's what you can't do against LA. They are going to be patient and wait for you to make a fancy play, intercept it, and then counter. And fortunately for the Lightning, the pass for Kempe was over his stick. They held it in, though, and Radish takes a penalty. So on this kill, when I first saw the play live, I just thought Cirelli was trying to clear it. He was actually trying to hit Hagel on a stretch pass, and he regretted that. So 2 games in a row now, the Lightning have given up a power play goal when their penalty killers are thinking offense as opposed to just getting it down the ice. It happened on the McTavish goal in Anaheim, and it happened on this Fiala goal. And Kuzmenko is a good stick. He knocks the puck out of the air, counters, and Perry makes a really terrific pass. And Fiala has an open side of the net. He puts it in. So now the Lightning are down again 3-2, and they basically generated nothing until the end of the game. And you had the feeling like the Kings are just going to ride this out. They're going to win 3-2, or maybe they're going to score an empty netter and win 4-2. The Lightning are probably about a minute away from pulling Johansson. Maybe not even a minute, because nothing was really happening. And sometimes Coop then will make an early pull to raise the urgency level. But they got another bounce. So Kucherov takes it by the net, centers it. Hagel is in the slot. He's covered by 2 Kings, but it kind of bounces off of him, rolls to the front of the net, and Cirelli has it come right to him, and he scoops it in. Kemper is down on the ice. I think Kemper might have been looking for the puck. So another bounce. The Kings called timeout. I think that they were considering a challenge, and they decided not to, and I think that was the right decision, because by the time Cirelli scores the goal, he's out of the blue paint. So there was a little bit of contact, but it wasn't significant. And by the time the goal is actually scored, Cirelli is not in the blue paint. The other thing I will point out is that Jim Hiller had a horrendous challenge in the playoffs last year for goalie interference that everyone agreed should not have been made. And that was one reason why they lost a playoff game to Edmonton in Edmonton. They were up. The Oilers scored to tie it, and the Kings rolled the dice on goalie interference. They lost, and then Edmonton scored on the ensuing power play and won that game. So I think that you go through something like that, you're going to be very cautious about challenging. Personally, I think had they challenged, the Lightning would have gotten the goal, but you never know. So I was relieved when they didn't challenge. So they didn't go on the penalty kill, the Kings, but they gave up the next goal anyway. And what happened on the Gonçalves goal, at the time, it looked like a 3-on-2. It's really a 3-on-3, though. The third Kings defender is in the neighborhood, but Gonçalves has a chance to take it to the net. He does. He takes a one-arm shot. Kemper makes the save, but can't really control the rebound, and it hits Gensel and comes behind the net. And I don't know if this is due to the fact that Kemper missed 6 games and hadn't played since mid-December.
Yep.
I mean, the point goal where he is thinking it's coming on one side, that's different. This one, he knows the puck is behind the net. He doesn't move over at all. He's still on the one side. And Gonçalves comes from behind the net. And at first I thought he chipped it in. It actually, I think, was a pass intended for Cirelli, but it hit off Joel Edmondson and went in the net. So another bounce for the Lightning, but they got a puck to the net and created some chaos. That was the key. And at that point, the Kings are like, are you kidding me? We've actually played really, really well in this game, and we didn't really make any mistakes, yet they got 3 bounces. The 2-2 goal was a good bounce for the Lightning. The 3-3 goal was a good bounce for the Lightning. And the 4-3 goal was a tremendous bounce for the Lightning, where it went in off their defender. And the Kings didn't really have much of a push after that. So the Lightning got the empty netter. Kucherov was kind of cherry-picking a little bit, which worked out because when Radish shot it down the ice, there was no way it was going to be icing because Kucherov was out of the play and he had time to get it and put it into the open net. So I think when you look at like game simulations, if you're giving the Kings a 3-2 lead and you're going to play that game, as we often say, like 10 times, I think the Lightning come back to win it. Let's say they play that game 20 times. I think the Lightning come back to win it in regulation 1 maybe out of 20. Maybe they get the game tied in a couple of the other simulations. Most of the time the Kings lock that thing down. They were undefeated, and they still are, 11-0 when leading after 2. Now, they weren't leading after 2, but basically they were because they got the goal early in the third. This is very, very rare to see the Kings lose a lead like that, but it's not like they made any major mistakes. The Lightning kind of forced their way into areas of the ice where chaos can happen, and once things got chaotic, the Lightning were able to benefit from some puck luck, honestly, and maybe a little bit of a rusty goalie. I think on the Gonçalves goal, Kemper should have reacted a little quicker to get over to the other post.
Well,
But
listen,
that's my opinion.
you and I talked about in the pregame. I think I asked you that question about Kemper potentially hadn't played a little bit. Would there be some rust? And yes, he was seeing some pucks in practice, but
he was
that
making
game
the first
action,
save. Yeah, he was making the first save just fine, but it was more like reacting in game chaos, right? Like, how are you going to react when things get a little off kilter?
And that's fair. That's all part of the process. I loved the Cirelli and Gonçalves goals because it was just kind of hard work going to the net, wasn't it? You know, we see Cirelli just planted right in front, and we can get to him because we have some people asking questions about defending Cirelli and his choice in being included on Team Canada. I guess there's more of a controversy nationally than you would think. But, you know.
Because there are so many qualified players, and you can't take everyone.
I
will point out, though, that some of these players that have not gotten an invitation may still get to go if we have injuries.
They may get in for sure. But, you know, good for Gonçalves because he's producing now. And, man, it's easier said than done. His game's pretty – you're going to evaluate him, partner, very simply in the sense that if you're going to be in a top six, you've got to be noticeable in chipping in offensively. You just have to be. I don't that maybe that's fair, maybe that's unfair. I don't know. But in this era where we are, if you're playing with very skilled players, you got to make your presence felt. And he is. Yeah. And this is the Gage Gonçalves that had everybody excited the second half of last season. But those two goals in particular, the Cirelli and Gonçalves goals, I just liked how they came about because they were greasy goals.
Yeah, which is really how you have to score against the Kings.
You do. And you're right. I don't get the same effect with this Kings team that I used to when the Devils were suffocating teams and basically giving up 19 shots a game and only one goal. We're not there yet in today's game. I think it's tough to have that type of defensive acumen every game. But you do get a little uneasy when a team like the Kings get a lead.
Yeah.
Because you're like, they're going to lock it down. That's just the way they play.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about their coaching real quick before we get to some questions and anything else. Do you think, is that a team that has to play the way they play because they don't have the offensive pop? Or do you feel like they actually have some players there and it's more about the system than anything else?
Yeah, I don't.
You've had a chance to look
enough to know, but I think they have the players. I think it maybe is a little bit of both. Like it's a choice to play it close to the vest. They don't let the horses out of the barn too much.
Yeah,
but I think that's kind of how they played last year too. They were a really, really good defensive team last year as well. So, like, the whole Kopitar thing is a little tricky. I'm not sure he is. I mean, he's having a good year. As of last night, he was their best plus-minus player. He's still winning 58% of his faceoffs, or he was going into last night's game. But he's not the same guy that he was. He's not. I mean, he's 38, and this is his last year. But, they're still playing him a fair amount. So, he has been a point producer in his career. I'm not sure that he is able to do that quite as much, but like Byfield's not a bad offensive player. And, I thought he was impressive in the two games that the Lightning played against the Kings. We know about Kempe. Fiala has proven that he can be, I mean, we're not talking about Celebrini type numbers, but, guys that can play and make plays. So I think it's maybe a little bit of both. I don't think they have the most dynamic offensive team, but they are probably capable of scoring more than they have scored. Also, their power play came into last night's game 32nd in the NHL, and their power play looked pretty good last night. So if they start doing better in the power play in the second half of the year, that'll help their offensive numbers.
Yep, for sure.
They are a fantastic 5-on-5 team. To come in, and I don't see where they are now, but they came into last night's game second in team defense, and that was with a penalty kill that was 22nd in the NHL. So their penalty kill is no great shakes. But if you're still second in team defense, that tells you how well, and when I say 5-on-5, it's not their differential because they're not scoring a lot. They just don't give up much 5-on-5. which tends to, maybe this year is just a different year, but that tends to translate very well to playoff success.
Yeah. Got to get in, right? And then
you got to get in.
You got to get in.
Right.
That's why
this is kind of how the Kings played when they were winning cups in the 2010s. Yeah. They struggled to score a little bit. Daryl Sittler was the I'm sorry, Daryl Sutter, not Daryl Sittler. Yeah. Daryl Sittler loved to score. Daryl Sutter was the coach, and they kind of fit his personality. They were rugged, they were structured, they were heavy, but they were plodding. Like they just didn't open things up. They didn't score a lot, but they scored enough. And they were virtually, I shouldn't say impossible to score on. Of course, they gave up some goals, but their trademark was how well they defended and how structured they were. This Kings team feels a little bit like those teams in terms of the makeup and how they want to play. Their decor is impressive. They have experienced defensemen, and they know how to execute out of the defensive zone.
It's really interesting. I don't know if they're a high ceiling team with all the talents, but their floor might be pretty high.
Yeah, they'd be a tough opponent if they get into the playoffs.
Yeah, they would be. They would be scrappy. Do we want to get to some questions here, partner? Do you have anything
Sure.
else we want to add to the game? And
I hadn't noticed that Kucherov is now on a 6-game road multi-point streak.
That's incredible, huh?
Which is second to Steven Stamkos in franchise history. That seems weird that he hasn't done that himself, but like you talk about, some of the offensive guys it's been inconsistent for the Lightning. You were saying that at the top of the show. I mean, where things are now, Point has done very well since he came back from injury.
Yep.
I think he's down to maybe -3, and he was -12 when he came back from injury.
Right.
And it hasn't been that long that he's whittled that thing down to close to even. Hopefully he can keep going and do that, and he's chipping in. I think he scored 6 goals since he's returned from injury, because he had 3 and now he has 9. We talked about Kucherov. He is definitely munching points, not in the standings, but munching points in terms of goals and assists, and he's moving up the scoring chart. Gensel has been rock solid all year, but he's continued to produce. And, Hagel missed that time after taking the elbow from Seth Jones, but, he came back with 4 assists in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're seeing
those
some
guys
offensive
start
production from the guys that you were like, your top guys need to lead the way here.
Yep. And the thing about it is, too, you're doing this because of injuries, of course, but Victor Hedman, no goals. Think about that.
Right.
It's almost like when Hedman comes back, if and when he's healthy and 100%, and if Point maintains his pace here to a degree, it's almost like you're picking up 2 new pieces of the trade deadline, right? Because you had those inconsistencies with Point for whatever reason. Eddie was injured. If those guys start performing at their career norms, that's really like adding 2 players you really didn't see too much of earlier in the year, and that's a huge boost.
Yeah,
huge
I
boost
agree.
when you talk about this team. Let's see. Just a bunch of Happy New Year's real quick here. Chris says, Blessed New Year, Bolts Nation. He also says, the Bolts are buzzing. Jim says, Happy New Year all. Great feeling getting 2 out of 3 so far in California. Remember we took that question before the road trip? Can the Lightning sweep it? And we were like,
neither game has been a cakewalk. I mean, they've both been real struggles of games.
Yeah. They are playing some good hockey. Jim also says, Happy New Year. I'd love to spend some time on the Olympic rosters. Would love some articulate answer stats I can keyboard word to all the anti-Surly folks out there. I'm not a big analytic guy when it comes to that.
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head. He is on the team in part, and I think you could probably say this for Hagel, although I think Hagel's a little bit more dynamic offensively, because of what they can do on the PK.
Yeah,
I mean that was together. That was out there. That was said by Armstrong for sure. But
yeah, he did.
I think that's a fair way to point out. If you want to dip into the analytics partner more and say, well, look, Cirelli scores 85% of his goals, 25 feet in or less, in and around the net. Okay, you can throw that around there, but let's not overthink this. He's
Right.
obviously a good player. He's on this team in part because they didn't take the 12 best offensive players at the forward position.
Yeah.
They took
And I mean,
guys
it's
who
not
can do a lot of
It's not
other
it's not a fantasy team
Correct.
where you're just like picking up the players and they're going to get you points
Yeah.
to beat an opponent on a certain week or whatever. So I did see that Jeff Blashill came out and spoke kind of in defense and on behalf of Connor Bedard, who was left off the team. Now, could Connor Bedard have made the team? Absolutely. Like
Yes.
the other guys that could have made the team, and they didn't. And they may still get on the team. This is the point. Like, you know, the year that Marty St. Louis was left off the Olympic roster and was very hurt by that, and was really like, that was the crack that ultimately led, I may be overstating it, but that was definitely a crack. And then soon after, you know, within a couple of months, the Lightning traded him to the Rangers. He did go to the Olympics. Like, he was added because there were injuries, right? So
That's a great point by you because I think a lot of people forget that.
yeah, he was on that team.
Yeah.
But it was being, you know, like the snub, right? That you weren't picked.
Yeah.
And so the players that have not been picked and the people who are advocating for them are upset, right? This is also true with Adam Fox with the Rangers, who was left off Team USA. So some of these players may still end up going. I think for Cirelli, the benefit of having him and Hagel as probably your top two penalty kill forwards and the chemistry they have together is a very appealing aspect when you're building a team. And probably, if not for Hagel, got Cirelli on the team. I mean, I think that, you know, Cirelli would have been in the conversation, but, you know, Cirelli doesn't have as many goals as some of these other guys. We've talked, like, Cirelli's not winning faceoffs like some of these other guys. Cirelli doesn't have the assist totals of some of these other guys. But what Cirelli can bring is, first of all, you know, he is a guy that has shown John Cooper how valuable he is in playoff hockey, and this is kind of like that because it's a short tournament, and he did very well for Canada and Four Nations. Now, there are players that did well for these other teams in Four Nations that are not on the Olympic rosters, particularly for USA and Canada. But Cirelli was a part, an important part of that Four Nations team in what he brought, and the people who were around that team saw that and understand it. But a lot of times when you're building these teams for tournaments, you see forward lines consisting of two guys who know each other or have some familiarity with each other. And Cirelli and Hagel have incredible chemistry. So if you're building a team, that is extremely valuable to bring in two guys you know are going to jive. Because it's not fantasy hockey. You have to build chemistry and get players in sync quickly. Now, the benefit is that some of these players, many of them who played in the Four Nations, know each other. But I think that's what it comes down to. I'm not going to make an argument that, you know, that Cirelli was more deserving than Connor Bedard or more deserving than some of these other players. Like, those players are deserving too, but you only have so many spots, and it's not only about like who can score the most, right? So Cirelli will fill a role similar in a way to what, you know, we were just saying about Pontus Holmberg. Pontus Holmberg will fill a role for Sweden. It's not going to be to score a bunch of goals, but it's to provide checking. You do need to check in these tournaments, right?
That guy
you
should
need to defend in these tournaments.
I didn't mean to cut you off there, partner.
No, it's all right.
Holmberg, that should be a huge confidence booster to him. I mean, he was already
Yeah.
playing with some confidence now. And
think
I
so.
keep going back. I keep going back to, you know, you talking to people in Toronto about, you know, Holmberg. What happened?
Well, they wanted him to produce
right?
more points.
And that's
I
what it was,
guess.
though.
Yeah.
That's what it was. But like, you're starting to see some pucks go in the net.
Yeah.
And maybe his game's starting to come around a little bit. And now
And he's
you're
getting chances, you know, like, I mean,
let's
he had
face
the
it.
chance against Kemper. Kemper
He
made
did.
a good glove save on him.
And he's got a nickname. And I think anytime you have a nickname, you're
Yes.
you're reeling a little bit, right? But I think, to be included among your nation's best players should give you some confidence, and maybe we see a better Holmberg here for the rest of the year.
And I'm going to go on a little bit of a soapbox here, just because Jeff Blashill opened the door. I mean, he went on a soapbox, so I'm going to jump on the box with Jeff Blashill. So when Blashill was talking about Bedard, and so Blashill knows Coop, right? And I mean, Coop didn't pick the team, but Coop had input, I'm sure. And Blashill knows Julian Brisebois, who is part of the management team for Canada. So he prefaced all this by saying, look, it's a hard decision to pick players from this huge list, but he wanted to advocate for his guy, Connor Bedard. So what he said was, I'm hearing all this stuff that, like, Bedard isn't good enough defensively. And he's like, I watch him play, and like I think people around the league don't know how good he is defensively this year. He's like, I can't speak to other years. This year, he has been a very, very good all-around player for us. And he basically said, since he got hurt, look at our record. But where he went on a soapbox, he basically said, these analytics, he basically called hogwash on them. I mean, that's basically like the whether it's the heat map or there are people that have made a living. Maybe they're making a living like they're living in a mansion, but they spend a lot of time and have developed a reputation and gained a following from doing these snapshot analytic posts about a player. It's almost like a baseball or hockey card where you're looking at the card and you're like, okay, this is what it's saying about this player, how dangerous offensively they are, how capable defensively they are, win above replacement, which is a big thing in baseball. And Blashill's like, I don't believe any of this, or at least I don't believe that it is telling the whole story. I don't want to put words in Blashill's mouth. And, that's kind of what I have been banging the drum on. It's like, analytics can help you understand, but they don't give you the whole picture. So bring this back to Cirelli. I think Cirelli's analytic card may not look as impressive as some other analytic cards for some players that are producing more points. If you are scoring goals, that's going to help your analytic card quite a bit. I'm calling it a card, but you know what I mean. It's like
I do.
Ranking of different qualities. And the game's just it doesn't translate exactly to that. It doesn't. That's something we've talked about a lot on this show. So It's a tool. It is part of understanding how to assess a player. But part of the understanding has to be watching the player. And I can guarantee you, for the fan who was like anti-Cirelli, these people that are upset about Cirelli, how much have they actually watched Anthony Cirelli play this year?
Sure.
It's probably not much at all.
I think
are they actually sitting and watching Cirelli play like Doug Armstrong was watching Cirelli?
Yeah.
And leaning on Julian, who's watching every shift that Cirelli plays. Now,
I think the average
confess
fan,
I'm not watching what these other players are doing shift in, shift out, and there's a bias that is baked into the cake here, because if you are a fan of a team and a player on that team was left off one of these rosters, you're ticked and you're looking at the Cirelli card and you're like, what is this? And it's like, well, have you watched Cirelli play? Have you watched him and Hagel kill penalties together? Have you seen how dangerous they are and how much they put the other team back on their heels?
Sure.
Have you watched him play at these high level competitions and see what he's brought to those teams? I mean, there are some people maybe who have, but not to the level that the management team did. And I can probably say with a fair amount of certainty, most of those people that were the anti-Cirelli keyboard warriors on the other side, they haven't watched him play. They're basing it on, kind of what they're seeing in terms of stats and these analytic cards. And that was Blashill's point. Blashill's like, I'm watching Connor Bedard play, and I can see that he's a very, very valuable player offensively and defensively. I wouldn't know that. I mean, we've only seen Bedard play once so far this year. Blashill's watching him on every shift.
I think a lot of people, you hit the nail on the head. It's more of the fantasy sport approach when you're looking at a lot of these rosters, and that's just not going to fly. I would also like to see, since the analytics have become a bigger part of the game, which players have gotten more of a pass because of their analytics, not necessarily their production.
What do you mean a pass?
In terms
Because
of
I mean,
maybe
the
even
teams that they're playing for, they are watching more than they're not just looking at analytics. Like coaches are making decisions based on what they're seeing.
I think there are players who, especially when they start signing contracts, and you're like, okay, what's behind this contract more? Or maybe somebody who keeps getting multiple contracts because the analytics are greater than the production. Now, you may say the analytics lead to his production in a certain way, whether it's, well, they're able to keep the puck in the offensive zone 25 seconds more than the average third line player. Whatever that. It'd be curious to see which guys are viewed more in that light than, the typical, the way we would see production, a lot of times, face-offs, 25 goals a year, 50 points. I'd be curious to see, because I'm sure the longer this plays out with the analytics, I'm sure there are players who are given more of a look today than they were 20 years ago in terms of what they can do that's not necessarily always showing up on the score sheet. And I'd be curious to see that play. In fact, the Lightning may have some players like that too. I don't know. It would be more. I'd be very interested in that, just more as an exercise. Let me get to this.
The other thing that I will point out that I heard, and I don't know how Lightning fans are going to react to this, like outside of the Lightning land, there's a lot of commentary about how Cooper was the coach, so that's why Cirelli was brought on. It's like, yeah, that probably had something to do with it.
That's okay.
I mean, that's now Sullivan did not take Adam Fox,
right?
So I mean, it's not always like a direct line, but if it's a coin toss, you may go with who the coach wants. The coach is behind the bench; he's in the trenches. If John Cooper is picked as the head coach of Team Canada, Cooper is going to have some say about his comfort level with the players on the bench in front of him.
I can't remember which Olympic year it was, but it was very similar to this, and I think I've told the story here on the air, is when Chris Kunitz was selected to play with Crosby.
Right, and that's what I was talking about with two forwards that have familiarity with. Now, Crosby could play with anyone.
Correct. But there was this, Kunitz can do a lot of things, but he's really good with Crosby, make Crosby comfortable, and let that play out. So, pretty interesting. Let me get to this read, partner, and then we'll take a couple more questions. Tonight, enjoy some Refrum. Smooth, versatile, and now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a Tropical Wave or a Lightning Mule and taste why fans are switching. Refrum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Refrum by name. Go Bolts and enjoy responsibly. All right, a couple more questions here before we do sign off. This one comes from Alan. The Lightning are playing at a championship level. I admit when I was wrong. Greg, you were right about points. My concerns were very premature. If he continues playing like he has recently, the NHL, watch out. You don't have to apologize. I mean, look, we all make comments that sometimes aren't accurate. I do it every day. Braden point, there was just too much of a track record, I think, to say this is going to be a year-long slump, although it does happen from time to time. But it is what it is. Thomas says, Dave has been partying like Pat Maroon winning a Stanley Cup, it sounds like.
I'm really Thomas. A homebody. I've been very unlucky with the illness. Now, the kids were home for Christmas, so I don't know. But although I think I may have caught this on the road, who knows? It comes with the territory.
E4
no,
says,
I did not precipitate this by staying out all night on New Year's Eve.
You didn't. You're not that guy, partner. E4 says, Dave, for the Stadium Series, have you thought about inviting Bucks radio broadcaster Gene Deckerhardt to his to this? But yours to the radio booth to help with what? So it sounds like, do you invite him? You want to have him come up to the radio booth? I don't know if you're doing play-by-play.
I'm not sure if Gene Deckerhoff would want to be. I would not drop that in his lap. That is,
but
I
think
hard
having
game
him on
to call play-by-play. Yeah, that might be fun.
I think that'd be kind of cool.
That's a good idea for Steve to bring in. And congratulations to Gene. As
for
this
sure.
is going to be his final year. Hopefully, the Bucks are able to get into the playoffs. we'll see
Yeah.
that tomorrow isn't going to be his final game.
I agree. EJ also says 37 years. Steve has said that's a long time.
Yeah.
What do you guys think is going on with the power play? For years, we've been a top power play team. What do you think we need to do? Obviously, counteracted with our PK being top 5. Look, the elephant in the room is the fact
we've addressed this a lot on the show, but go ahead.
you took a Hall of Famer off of the first unit, and I know that wasn't the case last year.
And
but
congratulations to Stamkos for hitting 600 goals.
That's just a hard guy to replace. That doesn't mean you can't replace it. You're just going to have to find it in other ways. That takes some adjusting. There are various ways that we have talked about improving the power play. I do think getting more pucks to the net from the point would help, although I fully acknowledge it is easier said than done. Face-offs, no doubt. Winning those consistently would help because you're not having to go back and retrieve the puck and spend 30, 40 seconds. And even getting the puck in has been sometimes a challenge.
Yes,
but
it
I think
has.
the other part, too, is, look, if Braden Point starts to get on a heater here, you're going to see those power play points increase and those percentages, I think, go up. But that's, those are just a few things. Local says Gonçalves has completely turned his season around, playing with Point and Cooch. I think he's done being a healthy scratch.
Well, I think being healthy scratched, whatever message they wanted to send, it was received.
Yeah. It's amazing what, look, we can talk about John Cooper too, and this is part of it. Understanding his team, who to push buttons with and who not to. Whether it was sitting Brandon Hagel for a period, whether it was scratching Gonçalves.
Yeah.
Those are two just minor examples, maybe big examples, but did Gonçalves get the message? Sounds like it, right?
Yeah. And also, as he started to play better and be more impactful, maybe that's the better way of putting it, I think it's helped his confidence.
Yeah.
It feeds on itself in a positive way.
I would agree. Chris says, Happy New Year, Dave and Greg. Great 2 games for the Bolts and hoping we can sweep the road trip. Also super excited that almost half the team made Olympic rosters. More if Russia was there. Hoping they all can stay healthy while in Milan. They gotta get the
that's
ice
everyone's
surface.
hope. Yeah.
They gotta get the ice surface situated, right? They get that figured out yet?
I think they said it's going to be okay.
They're going to be okay. Gary Bettman got over there and started saying, come on here. What are we doing? Last one. Tampa Bay said, last night's game kind of reminded me of Game 4 versus the Panthers at the end. Truly heartbreaking.
Well, if you're the Kings.
Yeah, really.
Well, and you'll take it. I mean, they've been on the wrong end of a lot of bounces this year. Those 2 home losses they had to Vancouver and the Rangers, it was like everything that could go wrong did.
Yeah.
And last night, it flipped. They got some bounces.
Thaw345 says, Kopitar, future Hall of Famer?
Yeah, that's a slam dunk.
Yeah, there's no question. Thaw also says, are the Lightning getting better on the faceoffs?
They had a bad night in Anaheim. They were even yesterday, 24-24. They just haven't really found somebody reliable. And, Paul had been doing well since he came back from injury.
Yeah.
What was he yesterday? He only took 2, 1 and 1. They actually had James taking a lot. James was 5-0 after 2 periods, but he finished 5-4. So, I mean, they don't have that money guy that they can just be like, we need this face off. As well as not, like some teams don't have a money guy per se, but they have 3 or 4 very reliable face-off guys that are over 50%. They're not at 58, but maybe they're at 51, 51.5. I mean, the Lightning, basically all their face-off guys other than Nick Paul are under 50. So, something we've talked about. I think that is an area of concern. I mean, it's not impossible to do well if you're not doing well on face-offs. Just look at where the Lightning are in the standings. Their penalty kill face-off percentage has been quite poor, and their penalty kill percentage has been good. But it's an obstacle you prefer not to have to work around. So we'll see if they can get better and or Julian addresses this in the second half of the year. But to answer the fans' question, no, it has not gotten better.
Yeah.
I mean, at times they're like, out of 32 teams, they might be, because you can look at the team face-off stats. They might be 29th, 30th, and then maybe they get up to 25th maybe 24th. They have a couple of games, and they drop back down. So they have been they are definitely in the bottom half and usually in the bottom third and at times in like the bottom fifth of the NHL.
Fair point. It'll be interesting. I wonder how much the face-off is about rhythm or technique. Mm-hmm. It's about both, probably. I'm curious which one's
they
more.
don't have a righty other than Point, and Point only takes certain face-offs.
Right.
So one reason why we talked about this on an earlier show, one reason why their penalty kill face-off percentage has been poor, the power play team is smart. They put Cirelli on his weak side. They put Paul on his weak side. They put Gordon on his weak side because you can pick the circle. So also the penalty kill team has to put the stick down first, which is a little bit of an advantage if you can put the stick down second. It all factors in, right?
It does.
And then the 50-50s. If you're down a man, a 50-50, you figure the power play team might have an advantage, although they have some of their guys back at the blue line. But, it's all of it. The one that the Kings scored on, that was a 50-50 faceoff, and Byfield just basically bulldozed. He took the draw. He bulldozed his way. He got the puck. It wasn't like he won it back. It was like sitting in the circle. He just like bulldozed his way to the puck, went right to the front of the net. That was a 50-50 faceoff. So the Lightning have not done well in the 50-50s either.
Sure. We'll see if it changes tomorrow a bit. Lightning and Sharks, 4 o'clock game Eastern. So we'll be on the airwaves at 3:30. And then, partner, you and I will be back at it again on Monday.
Yes, we will.
Recapping things, and hope your voice is better.
Yeah, well, let's see how I get through tomorrow's game. I'll have a day to rest up today.
And you know what? Before we sign off, I'm just seeing this press release. Charles-Edouard Destoux, 1-year contract extension.
Nice. That is another box checked for the Lightning.
Yeah.
That's great news.
1 year, one-way contract, $875.
That also tells you that he's probably, without knowing this for certain, he's going to be with the Lightning the rest of the year.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's part of the top 6.
Yeah.
Right?
You
Or
never
at least
know when
top
these
7.
injured guys come back. You're going to have McDonough coming back, Hedman, Lilleberg. You already got Chernak coming back, but Destoux has established himself as an NHL defenseman and got rewarded.
Good for him.
Yeah, very good for him.
Good for him. Partner, I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Talk to you tomorrow.
You got it. Thanks to everybody who listened. We appreciate you guys. Steve Ersnick, thank you. I am Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.